Once Assassin's Creed was fine, when Ezio was lead, and its world inviting. When the climbing still felt sublime, and it still felt so new, and the game was exciting. There was a time that it all went wrong. I dreamed a dream of creeds gone by, when they were good and had no sailing. I dreamed the future parts would die. I dreamed that Connor was non-existent. Now with Unity I'm afraid those pretty graphics will be wasted. I want some challenge to this game. No mission bland or copy-pasted. But the sequels come each year. With the changes ever subtler. So I'll keep my hopes in check. Else they crush my dreams again.
Ever since I decided to perform scientific research in the Arctic, I've lost all of my regular gaming buddies, mainly to frostbite, that killer shape-shifting creature. That's when I discovered Butterfied, a clever online service that matches me up with people to play with based on what I play and when I play it. It's like a dating site, only without the need to eventually go outside, which is not an option in my current situation. Sign up at butterfly.com today, and maybe I'll see you online if I haven't already gone mad from seeing all of my colleagues killed by an alien.
As you may have noticed, this is our first ever sponsored episode, so keep an ear out for a couple more ads during this show to see how our butterfied-loving Arctic scientist gets on. Now, we have plenty to crack on with this week, so let's get straight onto it. Answer me this. Who on earth are you, and what was your favourite or least dreadful April Fool's joke of this year?
I thought you just told me to introduce myself.
Sorry.
You go and tell them my name.
You've still got your surname.
Chong. And it's not really a good one, but it got me. Someone said that there was actually Nina from my business head of media. She said that under Charing Cross there was a secret church.
Please not plug your other company during the podcast.
Did it, and I don't care, and I'll do it again. She said that there was a secret church under Charing Cross that they were going to open today, and it hadn't been opened yesterday, and hadn't been open for years. And you could go down and have a look, and there were photos, and I totally bought it. I thought, oh, that's amazing. Because when you walk out of Charing Cross, there's that enormous spire thing.
Yes.
They said that was the top of it. And it was underground. And I just bought it. So,
oh, dear Simon.
And some people did go down. I wasn't that stupid, but then obviously it just turned out it was an April Fool's. And there is no secret church under Charing Cross. Gutted.
What a sham. Hi, I'm Ash, and my favourite one was the Optimus Prime DLC for Titanfall.
That was really cool. It was very cool. They put a lot of effort into that.
With a new exclusive track by Linkin Park called Primetime. I would not buy that.
IGN put a lot of effort into their April Fools. Like, I actually don't begrudge them because they're really professionally done. They even did that fake Legend of Zelda movie trailer a couple of weeks ago.
That was
they
awesome. Wow, yeah.
That was
a good one.
But yeah, the way that they've overlaid the Optimus Prime CG into existing game footage.
His voice actually sounds like Optimus Prime.
Pretty good. It's not quite Cullen, but it's pretty good.
Hello, my name's Gareth. I'm a man of simple pleasures. I quite enjoyed the Metros one, which was that comedy duo Ant and Dec had split up. Dec was relaunching his career simply as Dec.
Didn't he have an argument in Primark or something like
in
that?
IKEA.
Oh, in IKEA, yeah.
I like the idea that it was just going to be called Dec's Saturday Night Takeout. Despite never watching it, that's quite a good name, yeah.
And I'm Mike, and yes, I think mine was, I'm going to plug the indie one because I've got to, was the Vlambeer one, which was a first-person version of Nuclear Throne, which might actually be better than the original game. I'm trying to work out how to break that to Rami.
I think you just did.
I think I just did.
And I'm Dan, and I think my favourite one was a Japanese site tweeted an Outrun add-on for the 3DS, which made it resemble the old Outrun cabinet, complete with a tiny steering wheel on the bottom of the screen, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, and I would definitely buy it. So yes, as hopefully didn't escape your attention, we have a fifth person, Mike.
Hello.
Surname Bithell.
Hello.
Creator of Thomas Was Alone and currently working on Volume.
Not currently.
Not right now.
Not right now.
He is under the desk. He's actually coding.
I have a
under the
laptop
desk.
right here.
He's got deadlines to hit. People.
I do.
But before we talk to you a little more about that, we're going to go through the suggested names for the episode. So yes, the first name comes from Ben Borthwick, which is I'm an indie with integrity. Get me out of here. Darren Sampson with Lane Jam. The reasons for which will become clear if you aren't aware of current affairs. Tom Bryan with Bithell While You Work.
Hello.
That's my favourite.
I've never
suggestion.
heard that gag before, despite that's good. I like that.
Really, honestly.
No, genuinely. No, it sounds sarcastic. No, genuinely. I've never heard that
I've
pun.
never heard that. We were all quite fond of that one.
I like it. No, I do like that.
Tom Bedford with Alan Was in Good Company.
Nice.
See?
I see what they did there. Too.
Jonathan Goodall with P.S. We Love You. P.S. in this instance standing for Phil Spencer. And finally, Rob McKellar, who went with Get Lucky with an E. This is because of the Palmer Lucky death threats. It's also a title I came up with and then asked someone on Twitter to suggest just so I could read it out on the episode legitimately.
So is Rob McKellar a real person?
Rob McKellar's a real person,
Okay.
yeah.
We've got to make
It's actually an
people-
anagram of Dan's mum.
Yes.
Well, I'm going with Bithell While You Work.
I think we're all going with Ben.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. That's the new name for the blog, I think.
Which means you have to listen to this while you're working for it to really, really scan.
Can we get the whistle tune from the Seven Dwarfs as well?
Yes.
Disney are absolutely fine with
Yeah,
use
don't worry
names,
about it.
It's fine.
Not litigious
Like-
at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine.
Fair usage. It's fine.
Okay, what are we playing? Simon, you're first up as ever.
Is it Sonic? Are you playing some Sonic?
It is Sonic.
I was
It is
kidding.
Sonic this week.
Actually is.
It's been a platforming frenzy
No,
for me
balls.
this week.
I've seen you playing better games. Don't talk about that. Let's talk about some good stuff.
No, it's really not a good game. Sonic
Please
Lost.
let him talk
No,
about
no,
the
no,
shitty Zelda DLC.
So you've been talking about Goat Simulator. You've been playing
No,
that.
I'm leaving
Why would
that
you
to
talk
Dan.
about Sonic?
Because I'm gonna. Sonic. I was playing Sonic Lost World because there's DLC for it. They released 2 where they merged with Nintendo games. They fucking hate Sonic. Or maybe they don't. I don't know, but they like taking the piss out of me
they
for
hate
talking
Sonic.
about it. Anyway, there's a Yoshi's Island world and a Zelda world. So Sonic put on a little tunic and a green hat and he runs around Hyrule and it's just the worst thing that I've ever played. I don't see why Nintendo would agree to do it at all. It's just shit. And the Yoshi's Island one as well. It's just
Of all the things to allow a crossover for, one of the worst Sonic games of all time.
It is the worst
It
one
must
they've
have
ever
been
made.
pre-agreed. They must be bound into a contract. And when they saw the reviews, they were like, shit.
What you can have? You can
First the
have
CDI,
assets.
now
In
this.
fairness, they had
But it has to
20
be
years of warnings, so you kind of see that coming.
This is the one, guys. This is the one.
This is it.
This is the
Come
one that's
on
going
now.
to turn it all around.
They always say that as well about every
They do.
Sonic game, and every time.
It's quite interesting as a non-Sonic fan just watching the same curve happen absolutely every single
I'm
release.
an enormous Sonic fan, and every time I just die a little bit.
So when was
inside.
the last Sonic that you absolutely loved?
Oh gosh, Sonic Generations. That was a really good one.
Okay, cool.
That one, which was only the game before Sonic Lost World.
It's funny that the
that's
actual expectation disappointment curve that Sonic games generate would actually make for a very good Sonic level.
It would, little loop-de-loop.
It could be called the Sonic Boom Bust Cycle. Expectation
Zone.
meets, yeah.
Yeah, the Sonic Boom is the next game. There you go.
There you go.
Could be the bus cycle zone.
And that's the Trials Fusion beta. We got sent some codes for that. We're playing that. It's really good. You've been playing a little bit
They've
as well.
really gone to town on this one, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, it is more of the same. It's just with prettier graphics, which I have no problem with, because I love Trials. And already, Dan and I were challenging each other against times on the skills one, which is where you're not allowed to lean left, forwards or backwards. You've only allowed to accelerate.
Yep.
And yeah, we were trying to beat it already on the
So
beta.
yeah,
trying to
the
battle
old
each
the
other.
old magic has already returned.
Yeah.
But the quality on the visuals on this one,
Yeah.
they're really gone to town with having airships flying around and loads of unnecessary bloom and
I've not played the others on the PC.
No bloom is ever unnecessary.
So
It is in Trials. I'm like, I can't see my fucking bike.
I actually fired Trials up again just because it's quite important to all of us, isn't it, that we are basically better than each other.
Yeah.
So,
And this is definitely going to happen again.
yeah, we need to make this the old rivalry.
Can I just apologise for my squeaking chair? It may sound that there's an amorous couple above us while we're recording, but it's just me shifting about.
No, it really does come through on the mic.
Yeah, it does.
And then finally, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, which is what I bought for the Wii U. Thought I'd buy something for it because I never ever used my Wii U.
That sounds like a nice lolly.
Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Yeah.
It's a nice banana lolly.
It's a tasty little banana lolly. It's good. The first world I played was really just the most generic platformer I've ever played, but from there onwards it gets really cool. And you remember why Donkey Kong was so fun, like the levels where he's in a minecart and he's got to be quick. And
And then nice silhouette levels as well.
yeah.
It's bloody hard as well.
Really,
Very
really
quickly.
unforgivingly hard.
Ramps up, which is good. A
Yeah.
hardcore Nintendo platform.
And that's it. Now it is
That
Ashley.
was my turn. So, Burial at Sea Part 2. It's awesome. I love it. If you're a massive fan of Bioshock Infinite, which I am, then you'll love it. It's better than the first one. The combat's much, much better. I think I can say this? Yeah, it's in the trailer. You play as Elizabeth, and it's a stealth DLC pack, basically. So you're able to see through walls, and you turn invisible at the same time. So it's quite cool. So the story is better than Episode 1, and the combat is a hell of a lot better, and it ties everything really, really nicely together.
Have you finished it?
Yes.
Is it longer?
nice?
That's a good question. Probably about the same.
How much did it cost?
I don't know. I got the season pass.
Oh, la-di-da.
Look at me. Ooh.
You all flash with your cash.
£11, I think the first one was.
Yeah.
It's about 3 hours, aren't they? Something like that.
It's worth it. If you really like the gameplay and you like the world, just do it.
Does it kind of tie the original Bioshock universe and the Infinite
Yes.
universe?
That's why I'm trying to be
together?
careful of what I can say and what I can't. It ties the first Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite together almost seamlessly.
So we're going to have a good farewell for Irrational as well, then, in that
Yeah, yeah.
case.
Oh, yeah. It was really sad to see the credits roll because they always have a thing at the end where they have like a handycam thing inside the studio where they record a song and they're just kind of filming in the studio while they're doing it. And it's like a bit of a swan song because it's the girl who voices Elizabeth and she's singing kind of like a goodbye. Oh. Then the credits roll. Oh, that's it.
I'm looking forward to that. I'll play that, I think, after I
Good.
finish Donkey Kong.
You'll be happy. You'll be very happy.
And that's all you've been on this week, 'cause you're a very busy man.
I am. Yeah, yeah. It seems to be a crazy work week. Late nights and troubled times. Yeah.
Crimey River.
Good stuff.
Times.
You can't see, listeners, but there's a single tear rolling down my cheek.
Gareth.
What have I been playing? I'm still. Well, I finished off The Last of Us, which obviously I was late to the party on that one. Fantastic ending, but now I have the DLC of that to go through. I haven't actually started that, so little point talking about it. Still in the middle of the Stick of Truth as well. But the one I probably want to talk about is Duet, which I touched on really briefly a couple of episodes ago. Oh my god, it's so addictive. It's so the little iOS game where you play two little balls which rotate in space as you try and circumnavigate your way around falling blocks, almost like Tetris style.
It's like a vertical scrolling super hexagon of sorts.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult one to sell, as in how to explain it, but that's not bad. But it's very addictive. Playing that, going from shoot to shoot this week, and one notable time on the tube where I failed to make it just on the last block and slammed my head backwards in anger, hitting a metal panel, which made a much louder noise than what it hurt, but I think everybody on the tube looked round to see me red-faced.
It was a very violent sound. We were all just coming back from a shoot, and you just kind of recoiled and slammed your head against it. You know when you kind of, I don't know if you've ever done this, you get like a biscuit lid and you slam it over someone's head and it doesn't cause any pain whatsoever, but it's really loud. That was basically that effect.
Yeah, but...
The Duet experience.
I'm glad that you two were there to witness that.
Well, yeah, I mean, my shame is now complete by broadcasting it as well. If you're not happy with the initial embarrassment, you've really got to tell everybody as well.
It's a podcast stroke confessional.
Yeah.
That's what I like about this show.
It's nice, quite cathartic. I feel good about it.
It ties into the competition this week as well.
Oh, yeah.
And the results of the
course,
competition, yeah. It's embarrassing self-inflicted injuries.
Talking of the results of competition, I believe one lucky winner got his picture of my face pushed up against some glass.
Yeah,
So,
in case you thought we were actually taking the piss, Gareth did actually take a photo of his face pushed up against some glass. and it was actually to spec as well, because the competition winner, Chris Locke, wanted it to look like Gareth was trapped inside his mobile. He even formatted it to the correct dimensions for his phone, and then he sent us a picture, didn't he, of the...
Yeah, what will be the next giveaway?
That's it.
Yeah? Okay, so yeah, that's me.
Good.
What
And
about you, Mike?
Well, I've had really busy couple of weeks because I was at GDC and Res, so I kind of haven't played many games, but I did play Ground Zeroes recently, which was good. I think I finished it. People tell me I haven't actually finished it. Because it's got you play it many times. So I haven't done that, and the new Infamous as well. I've been playing a lot of, what
do you make of that?
Yeah, we were a bit critical of it last week.
It ticks the box. Yeah, exactly right. That's the thing. That's the best critique. I know it's beautiful visually. Particle effects are really cool. It turns out. It's just kind of quite shallow. It's very clearly kind of it's a very surface level game. You run around and you do the same thing over and over. And honestly, right now I'm in I've been kind of in the last couple of weeks in kind of a crunch mode. So actually having a game that didn't require much thinking and I could just vegetate in front of for half an hour actually sort of worked for me. But it's not a system seller yet, is it? I don't.
It's exactly basically what we thought.
It is, yeah.
Cool. Seems we're all on the same page.
But there is that, as you say, there is that cathartic element to it, because sometimes when a game isn't challenging, that can actually be quite nice sometimes.
For me right now, that's what I need. And I'm also playing threes, which is challenging, which is killing me. So it's actually nice to have a little break from threes.
But very short burst gaming threes, isn't it?
Threes. Well, it depends how good you are at it.
I'm playing the free rip-off I didn't know was a free rip-off.
You're a monster.
You're
a monster. You are everything.
I basically told Simon off because he didn't know.
A lot of people don't. I remember someone told me about it and said that threes was the clone of something else. And I was just chatting to someone the other day. I got a lot of trouble for thinking that. But yeah, no, it's a great game, but it's one that it falls into the trap of a lot of these kind of mobile indie games where the genius of it and the fact that it takes, I think it took those guys a year to make, is completely ruined by the fact that you can copy it, just on a code level without doing any of that clever thinking in a weekend. And that's the big challenge, is that everyone's just copied them.
I have bought three since.
Oh, good. So apparently 2048 was actually coded by a 19-year-old.
It was like a little, like a hack project, like we always tell up-and-coming indies, hey, just make a little clone of something and that'll teach you how to make games. And this kid did it, but then released the source code for free. Oh. So while he was just a kid learning how to do things, a lot of other people were like, oh, money. And yeah.
Quick question before we move on. Seeing as you were talking about we're all talking about what we're playing, while you're developing your latest and greatest,
yes,
do you
latest
play?
At least.
Yeah. Do you play games that kind of influence what you're making?
I'm very careful because I'm always very conscious of the fact that I'm a sponge for game mechanics, and if I see something that I'm going to want to add it or I'm going to change my stuff. So for me, it's with Volume because it's a stealth game. It's kind of an old school stealth game. I have gone back and replayed all of the games that I know I'm taking inspiration from. So the Metal Gear games, Hitman, Splinter Cell, those games. What I've tried to do is avoid kind of the new indie stealth games like Monaco, because
Stealth Bastard and things like that.
Well, Stealth Bastard I've played because I've worked with Curve on Thomas Was Alone, so that one I couldn't help. But yeah, so I'm very mindful of, I want to rip off old games. That's part of the process. But I'm also very self-conscious that I don't want to make something that feels too much like what everyone else is doing. But I assume, I know, for example, there's a lot of mechanics the Volume shares with Mark of the Ninja. That's because we're both basing our game on Metal Gear Solid to a certain extent. So I think there is overlap, but it's about being careful not to just completely steal other people's stuff unless time has passed, in which case it's morally fine.
It's totally fine.
There you go. I think that's all for that, so let's get to know us. Or more specifically,
getting to know
Mike.
Getting to know all about
Mike. It's time to get to know Mike.
That's a great voice. Hello.
Sound like the advert from Wix.
That's Wix.
So, I mean, we've already touched on this now because Ash asked you a question about the design process, but you're working on Volume right now, and you've been at GDC. Last time I saw Volume was at the Eurogamer Expo.
Oh yeah, back in September. Right?
Yeah, very early days, I guess.
Less early than I'd have liked for the state the game was in. But yeah.
So, I mean, what did you show at GDC, and kind of how far have you kind of progressed since September?
Well, I mean, to be honest, GDC was more, I was there to learn, basically. I ended up seeing 2 talks, so it didn't go so well as I'd hoped. I spent most of it at parties, it seems. But no, it was good. I showed it to some press. It was a good opportunity for me because while I know kind of lots of UK people, I don't know anyone in America, so kind of hanging out at the GameSpot office and showing them stuff and showing all the big kind of American sites was cool. To be honest, the game mechanically it's just been kind of been polished since Eurogamer. The game's kind of mechanically there. I've not been showing a lot of the newer stuff because it's ugly as hell at the moment. Because obviously, you make something and then you make it look good and feel good. But yeah, it's coming along, and the big thing that kind of shifted, that seems to have entirely distracted everyone from everything else in the game, is when you load a level, a bunch of triangles form to build the level. A job that took me an afternoon is now the key selling point of my game, at least with all the new coverage. So no, it was cool. It was good to show it to people, but it's coming along. The game's coming along well.
It's like you said, infamous Dem particles.
Dem particles. That's what the future is. That's future technology, because particles are cheap now, so you can just kind of throw stuff. Interestingly, actually, it's not a particle effect; it's a UV offset effect. But I don't want to correct you on this, and it's embarrassing to do it.
I haven't seen the effect.
You haven't seen the effect. Well, that's no excuse.
I'm very sorry.
I want to know what a UV offset effect is. I feel like I should know this.
Okay, so do you actually want to know?
Oh no, I really do.
Let's get technical.
So when you're rendering things, you render through a shader, which is a piece of code that takes the polygon geometry of a scene or an object or whatever, a teapot, and then tells the computer, okay, render it in this way. Draw a little gradient going off there to show shadow and blah 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 blah. What you can do, I love that I'm explaining this on a podcast. It's awesome. What you can do is you can do various interesting things with shaders to make them do clever stuff. So you can draw an outline around an object to do toon shading in that code. What I'm specifically doing in Volume is there's sections of the game where the levels kind of seem to shatter and kind of reform and do stuff. All that is the actual geometry of the level isn't changing, but I'm confusing the computer. I'm telling the computer to draw things in the wrong places. So kind of offsetting physical space. So that triangle never actually moved, but as far as the computer's concerned, it's being drawn over here, which creates the illusion of things exploding and shattering and doing cool stuff.
That's very cool.
That is very
Much
cool.
cheaper than moving geometry.
Yeah.
This is the most informative podcast ever.
It's a level of detail no one needed to know.
So, have you built Volume from the ground up, or have you employed any kind of middleware in its creation?
Well, there's Unity, which is the engine, and then there's some stuff I've bought. So with Unity, there's something called the Asset Store, which they're playing with now, which basically allows developers to purchase kind of modules, bits of code to do certain jobs. So I'm trying to think of an example. So when you go behind a wall in Volume, you get like a silhouette, like that old school kind of Diablo thing. That was the code to handle that specific thing was bought off the Asset Store for, I think, 10 quid. Which when
fantastic.
you, like the person who made it, the coder who's made it, obviously is going to sell that to thousands of developers. But if I went to a specific coder and said, I need this effect in the game, that's going to be a lot more than 10 quid. So it's a system that kind of works, but you have to be careful that you don't create something very, very generic.
How are you finding using Unity?
I love it. I mean, it's what I used for Thomas Was Alone. So it's kind of a homecoming for me with Volume, is that like I spent Thomas like hitting my head against a wall trying to learn the software. In fact, actually, Thomas Was Alone, the folder on my computer is called Teaching Myself Unity. It's a tutorial that I've had, basically. But what that means is with Volume is it's now me going, okay, so I now know this, so I'm going to get comfortable and make something much more ambitious. What's brilliant is Unity have just completely created, Unity 5, which is completely different, and I'll have to relearn everything. So just to the point where I was like, I know this, I can make the game like, it's done now.
Thanks.
So the story of Volume is loosely based on, obviously, Robin of
Locksley.
Yes.
It's the idea of it. So it was okay. So
Kevin Costner version, though, yeah.
Specifically, yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's some very interesting legal and copyright issues surrounding the Robin Hood mythos. Because Robin Hood obviously is out of copyright. It's a medieval story originally, but there are certain aspects of the story. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a nerdy tangent again. Which are locked down. So, for example, the idea of him having a friend he's brought back from the Crusades, the Morgan Freeman character, that is actually owned by a TV company from the 60s who introduced that to their version, and they actually successfully sued Kevin Costner's production company for nicking that idea from him. So you do actually have to be careful saying, so no, it is specifically based on the medieval era Robin Hood.
So there'll be no appearance of Sean Connery at the end to say 4 words and get paid £6 million.
It would be awesome. But no, it's essentially I was sat in a panel. I was actually on stage in a panel about the UK tax break. stuff that was going to be coming in and has now just appeared, basically. And they were talking about culturally British games. And I was just sat there daydreaming because it wasn't my turn to talk. It was incredibly rude. And I just thought, there should be like a Robin Hood game. Robin Hood's something that no one's done in a video game for a while, like other than like, Assassin's Creed's kind of taken lots of parts of it, but there's never been an explicit Robin Hood game. And I started thinking holograms are cool. Damn, holograms didn't exist in the medieval times. So I'll do futuristic Robin Hood. And I just was like sat there like a 12-year-old inventing this absolutely ridiculous narrative. But it's kind of come together. The idea is, what if a Robin Hood character emerged now? Would they rob from the rich and give to the poor? Probably not, because that's going to take a long time. And Robin Hood was always about looking cool in front of the little guys. Like, he was always a bit of a dick. Like, that's always been part of the character. That's why Kevin Costner was so good in the role. But I hope I never meet Kevin Costner. I don't know.
He's a regular listener, Mike.
Okay. I'm sure he has his people listening to all these things. So it was the idea of what would he do now, and the thought process was he'd become a YouTuber. So he's a let's player of crime. So he's found this kind of military simulator for training the oppressive government in which he lives, and he's gone, I'm going to reprogram this and broadcast it. So he goes online and broadcasts how to rob from the rich. And where the game story gets interesting is obviously people start copying what he's showing and doing it in the real world, which is a very good way of making a game all based in one room.
So it's not robbing the rich from the rich, giving to the poor. It's teaching the poor to rob from the rich.
Yes.
Nice.
And we explore what that is, and is he actually a hero, or is he someone who's getting other people to do his dirty work, and is he just a show off, and all this stuff. So it's a good way of, because you can deconstruct Robin Hood now. Robin Hood is a problematic story in a lot of ways in terms of what's happened with the story over the years. Things have always been added to it in order to kind of appease whoever's in charge of the day. So things like, Henry VIII was a massive fan, so suddenly he became a nobleman because Henry VIII didn't want to. Henry VIII literally dressed up as Robin Hood. He did Robin Hood cosplay. This guy, he was a proper Robin Hood nerd. Stuff like that. Stuff like the idea of it being based in medieval times is something that's really new. It was the Victorians were obsessed with medieval era stuff, so they pushed it back. He was always like Spider-Man. He was always set in the modern day. This whole Richard the Lionheart stuff was added about 100, 200 years ago. So it's an interesting thing to kind of dive in and go, okay, so what's that? I've just realised I'm just ranting.
No, it's funny. It's funny how we get so worked up about the kind of bastardization and rebooting of franchises these days when it's a practice as old as time. Yes,
Robin Hood didn't rob from the rich until about 200 years after the first story existed. He didn't have a bow and arrow for the first 100 years. Like this is all stuff that's been kind of stuck onto it, and then this constant search for the real Robin Hood.
Fuck's sake, Robin.
My favourite interpretation was Maid Marian. Do you remember the CDB show?
With Tony Robbins.
Yeah, Tony Robbins.
And he was just this slightly wet.
Also, Danny John Jules, wasn't it?
He was Barrington.
Oh, he was. He's on children's TV all the time now, that guy, isn't he?
I like that guy a lot.
He's awesome.
He's in Once Upon a Time now, isn't he?
Is he really?
Sean Maguire plays him.
Shit. I thought you said Sean Maguire plays Danny John Jules.
Interesting.
I love Once Upon a Time. That's not shit. But Sean Maguire as him is so like... He's putting on the most pathetic British accent. I know he is British, but he's like, oh dear.
He's very rarely
playing it up.
He's always been played by people putting on awkward accents. That's the brilliance of the Robin Hood character. It's very rarely actually been played by an Englishman.
Yeah, I'll say some of them don't even bother with an accent.
Like Russell Crowe.
What was that about? Welsh Geordie. Yeah.
That was a very strange voice, and that's an excellent example of people trying to do the real Robin Hood and going back and trying to, and it's just like, no, that. What?
Wasn't the whole point of that film that he wasn't actually Robin of Locksley? He was just some guy who was called Robin who
he took the name or something.
Yeah, he got caught up in the action. He was like, oh yeah, I'm him. Yeah.
Or is that the Life of Brian of the Robin Hood legend?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just further down the cops, you see the guy with the green hat. Yeah.
He's not robbing from the rich to give to the poor. He's just a very naughty boy. Yeah. Right. So before we move on to the competition winners, when are you currently looking to release Volume? And on what formats?
We're aiming for end of the year. But we'll see how successful that beautiful dream is. But initially PS4 and Vita, and then a month later we'll bring it to PC, Mac, SteamOS, and then after that any other platforms who
let's see
want
if
it.
Phil gets in touch and
let's see if he gives me a bell. I was sat in a diner opposite Phil Harrison the other day at GDC.
Really? Big Phil.
He was there, and it was I didn't speak to him. I was too busy eating my burger.
Just exchanged glances. Little nod.
Flirtatious looks across the room. Yeah.
Throw in the gherkins.
It's really interesting following you on Twitter when you're posting stuff about the game, when you're making it. Like, it's genuinely seeing, like, honestly how a game is made. And you post things that don't work. Like, you post vines of where the character's, like, completely spazzing out. Or when you're doing, like, the UI and stuff, like, his hand went in front of text and stuff. Like, you're seeing it's not a perfect process of making a game. And it's just really
it's fun to play with, because obviously I don't share I have a lot of very bad days of development that kind of don't go up there. But it's an interesting thing to toy with, definitely.
Yeah.
If we've learned anything from Goat Simulator, it's that you should keep all bugs in.
Oh, God. Yes.
Right. Competition winners. So last week, we were giving away 3 codes for the Trials Fusion beta that we've just been talking about.
Yes.
And the competition mechanic was that you had to send in a story of your most embarrassing or weirdest self-inflicted injury, because Trials obviously involves the rider getting battered about a significant amount. And in Fusion, an incredible amount. So really,
Death
really
animations
over the top,
are pretty over the top.
It is insane. And we've picked our 3 winners.
We have.
If any of the winners we read out and we will mail you, you do have the option of having the Gareth's face picture instead of your Trials Fusion code. Totally your choice. The first one is Rory Baker, who says, my embarrassing injury entry is from a couple of years back. While looking for something in my garage, I came across a Poundland children's pellet gun. I had no idea when I had actually bought it, but that applies to most things in my garage. Being the man-child I am, I picked it up and began playing with it. I was having the time of my life until I saw my reflection in a window. I guess I fancied myself as some sort of Max Payne-esque action hero and posed with a gun pointed at the window. I thought I looked pretty damn cool until I realised it still had one of the lethal fluorescent yellow balls inside it. It went off, ricocheted off the glass and hit me straight in the eye. Blind in one eye, I went to run inside to get an ice pack, but in typical slapstick fashion, ran into the concrete wall on the way out. For about 10 minutes, I lay on the floor, a half-blind and immobile ball of shame. But still, it was a pretty good shot.
That sounded like something Terry Wogan might read out on BBC Radio
Still,
2.
pretty good shot. Would someone like to read Martin Williams's?
Sure. Yeah, Martin Williams, he is the second winner, and he says, at a curious 14, I took a torch apart, as you do, and took out the miniature light bulb. This light bulb, about the size of a fun-sized Toblerone. It was pretty hard, but just how hard was it? Anyway, I squeezed it as hard as I could until it shattered between my fingers. Lots of blood, some severed nerve ends, and a short trip to casualty later, I was okay. But honestly, I squeezed a light bulb to see how hard I had to squeeze it in order to break it. Who does that? Me. That's who.
The best thing about that is that he preceded that saying, this isn't really an embarrassing injury, but I'll give it a go anyway. This is a very embarrassing injury.
You squeezed the light bulb.
You squeezed glass to see how hard it was. But for your stupidity, you've earned yourself a Trials Fusion code. And finally, is it Rob? We were discussing this, wasn't it? Tange.
He's French.
Rob Tange. Not really strange, but it was embarrassing. Back when I was a young lad with no cares in the world, I decided it would be a good idea to climb onto the bonnet of my mate's Ford Escort. He thought it a good idea to start driving. How we laughed. Right up until the point he reached 20 miles per hour and came to change gear. This was the moment I was catapulted off the bonnet. I don't remember anything of the events after, only waking up in the hospital. I had 5 stitches in my head and 5 underneath my nose. I couldn't walk for a week afterwards either. People mention the scar on my face, and I cringe when I tell them the story.
That's the winner of all prizes, because it actually sounds like something you might do in Trials.
He says ragdolling off the top.
But Rob, on a side note, says, my proudest self-inflicted injury is my Project Possum tattoo.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. That I don't mind telling me about.
He
Thank you,
gets
Rob.
2 prizes. He gets the picture as well.
You get the picture as well. Well done. But yes, check your inboxes for your beta codes. We haven't got a competition this week. We'll try and sort one out next week. But for now, another message from our sponsors.
Hello, it's me again, your friend in the Arctic. Good news! I'm still alive, and that evil alien still hasn't found my hiding place yet. So I've got time to tell you a little more about Butterfied. 1, it's spelled Buddyfied. 2, it doesn't just pair you up with like-minded players, but it also lets you upload photos and videos, create clubs and events, and participate in a mass live chat stream. It certainly keeps my mind off this whole imminent threat of death thing. That's Butterfied.com. Go there before, oh my god!
This is the news, and these are our views. In 60 seconds, flat. It's not very long, but we're ruled by a gong that hates meandering chat.
Okay, it's time for another bout of the 60-second news gong. Simon, sound that bad boy.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Mike, you're not a regular listener to the show, so we'll just break it down. Basically, we read out the news, and then the rest of us have got 60 seconds to comment on it.
Awesome. And if we want to talk more, then we can play a Joker card.
I think we need a better name than Joker card.
But we don't get to go Joker card.
We can call it, we can call it Time Extend, because that's a very game.
It's an
Time Extend. Even though there's 5 of us, only 4 stories, so one I've just listed as Gashly, so it's up to either Gareth or Ash. But I really want you to read one word each.
No one will understand
See how that goes.
We'll try it.
Reports have surfaced of the disastrous, abandoned production of Green Label Game Jam, a documentary-cum-reality show intended for YouTube. The show was set to pair the cream of indie development and YouTube presenting talent in a bid to give an intimate insight into the trials and tribulations of a game jam. Unfortunately, the addition of corporate sponsors and an interesting brand energy consultant Christ threw the entire event into disarray, taking the focus away from game development and into Geordie Shore-esque scripted reality territory. The final straw apparently came when the brand energy man, better known as Matty Lesham, look him up, he looks like a tool, asked the team featuring Adriel Wallach, who worked on Rock Band Blitz and used to make satellites for Lockheed Martin, whether they had an advantage because they had a pretty girl on the team.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. With devs and YouTube talent united in abandoning the project, the Green Label Game Jam was brought to an abrupt end at an estimated cost of $400,000 to Disney-owned multi-channel network Maker Games. Question: is this proof that independent talent and corporations can't mix, or just an isolated example of a rotten apple spoiling it for everyone?
Go. I mean, the ingredients were never there, were they? A bunch of douchebags and a guy who makes weapons of mass destruction. Fuck it off. Don't even start making it.
From what I've read, there's a very good report of it on Indie Static, which I think you've read as well.
To be honest, a lot of my mates are involved, so I've read everything.
Oh, well, do tell then. I think you're the best man to deliver the next 40 seconds worth of content.
No, it's brilliant. I just knowing the people involved, I love the mental image of like Zoe and Adriel just destroying this amazingly structured thing. It's nonsense, but I think it sounds like the people from the YouTube channels that were taking part and the indies both had this cool idea, and then they took the sponsors' money and it kind of overwhelmed everything. Ironically, I did go out and buy a Mountain Dew after reading the news story.
Big bag of Doritos.
Because I just fancied the Mountain Dew after reading all the stories, so they won, I guess.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Simon.
I realise there's 2 Oculus Rift stories again this week, but never mind. We discussed last week about Facebook buying Oculus Rift, and it seems the company are already hard at work spending that money to steal away the top virtual reality people in the industry. They've nabbed 3 VR veterans from Valve in as many weeks, the most recent being Aaron Nichols, who spent 4 years working on VR at Valve. So my question is, obviously, it's only be a good thing for Oculus, but is a sign that perhaps this acquisition is going to lead to a lot more aggressive takeover than we thought.
Do you mean in terms of the VR industry at large? That basically they're now just going to use their money to just
Facebook
pull everyone out of any other VR related project?
Yeah, basically. That's what it just sounds like.
Maybe.
You've got £2 billion, that amount, so let's go buy up some talent.
Yeah, they've just stolen everyone away from Valve, so I don't know what Valve are going to do.
I think it'll suit Valve. Valve, at least the way they talk about it to devs, is it's much more they want to be the ones supporting the software for the hardware. I don't think they have aspirations to build their own VR kit or their own hardware.
That's what I was wondering, because I've not heard of Valve making VR stuff.
No, so what they're doing, I was at their VR event they did in Seattle a couple of months ago, and they're basically, sorry, I keep doing this, it sounds like I'm name dropping, I apologise. I am name dropping. But it is basically they want to be the software people who support this tech.
Right.
So they've not been bringing a hardware to market, but what they are doing is some behind the scenes stuff to kind of standardize the inputs, the boring stuff that will make game developers capable of putting this stuff on their hardware.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Time extend.
Yeah,
okay.
It's an extender.
So, I mean, what did Valve kind of express during that talk? In addition, I mean, by losing these people now to Oculus, what do they stand to lose internally, or is this something
they lose nothing, they gain everything? To be honest, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Gabe Newell was carrying their bags for them over to the Oculus office. Like, seriously, because that makes sense. It's Valve are invested in this hardware existing. They're not invested in selling VR kits. So it makes absolute sense for all of that research talent that's been taking the hardware as far as they can within Valve to move over now, spend this money on R&D, and help to bring the Oculus out. Steam don't care as long as the place you buy your Oculus games is on Steam.
Indeed. And I guess they'll probably be trying to treat the Steam machines as the ideal kind of partner machine.
Potentially.
For the device as well.
Potentially. I mean, again, well, I don't know, maybe. That could work. But it would also... Steam Machine is, again, just a way of them bringing their software into the living room. Everything comes from software now. Everything's about Steam.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Oculus VR staff and their families have received abusive phone calls and death threats following Facebook's acquisition. Sorry, I feel... what I've done here is I've done the classic newsreader thing. I've gone into a story with the happy add one more thing story, and it's about a hurricane. So, let me assume a slightly... Oculus VR staff and their families have received abusive phone calls and death threats following Facebook's acquisition of the company. Oculus VR founder Palmer Luckey responded by saying, "We know we will prove ourselves with actions and not words, but that kind of shit is unwarranted, especially since it is impacting people who have nothing to do with Oculus. We expected a negative reaction. That does not mean we think the reaction is warranted. My primary goal is the long-term success of VR, not short-term warm and fuzzy feelings." So the question is the backlash likely to die down naturally, or is it in Oculus and Facebook's interest to share their vision for the Rift as quickly as possible to prevent a revolt?
As quickly as possible. It's going to die down, but if they just went, look, here's what we're doing. But do you think that would appease people?
Well, one of the things Palmer said was like, the plans we have and the things that we want to do with Facebook are things that we're not talking about yet or want to share. But I don't know, even giving an inkling of what that vision is, because all people have had so far is what Zuckerberg said, which is we want to use this for advertising and all that, and that's what's thrown everyone into a bit of a disarray.
You don't negotiate with internet trolls.
It is the flavour. Yeah, it's the flavour of the month. This storm will pass.
Yeah.
There's, like you say, there's no point feeding them or trying to even open discussions with them. It will pass. Just weather the storm, I think, is the best bet there.
What was your reaction when the deal was announced?
I was happy because it's a lot of money for the technology I want. I think a lot of people are reading this in a slightly too literal way of, oh, Facebook, Farmville on VR, excellent. It's like, no, that's not really how things work at that scale. My hope is that Mark Zuckerberg is a nerd who really likes VR and had some money lying around in his flat.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Former Microsoft
studio boss
Phil Spencer
has ascended
to become
head of X. Oh, wait. Can I just do head of Xbox?
Yeah, okay, right.
Head of Xbox.
This new position puts
him in charge
of any creative
team bearing
the name
Xbox,
including Xbox Live,
Xbox Music,
and Xbox Video,
as well as
his old stomping ground,
Microsoft Studios.
And telling Spencer
will not
report into Stephen
Elop.
Fuck this shit.
You can read 3 words.
Oh, this is funny. The new executive vice president of the Microsoft Devices Group, he previously announced an interest in selling off Xbox. In an official statement, Lord Phil of Xbox said, "Games and gamers have always been at the core of Xbox and the core of my work. Lies. And gaming will be our core as we take Xbox forward." So the question is, are we hoping that this will re-energize Microsoft's internal and second-party development?
Go. Quite possibly. I don't think it's lies. I met Phil Spencer on my first day on the job, very briefly, and he's been deeply involved in Microsoft Studios since then.
Didn't you say he couldn't be bothered to talk to you then?
He couldn't be bothered to talk to me. He was like, "Why are you in my room? Who the hell are you?" But my boss was very excited to introduce me to him. But for once I've got reason to be cautiously optimistic about this, because I think their internal and second party dev has really fallen by the wayside. Too much reliance on the same few properties, none of which particularly excite me, i.e. Fable, Halo and Gears of War. It's like I wanted to see them branching out and doing something. I want them to become basically a suitable rival to Sony's internal studios, who are constantly generating tons of original content.
The return of Blinks.
The return of Blinks, the time sweeper.
Oh, I thought it was a time detective.
That's the new one.
Oh, there we go.
L.A. Noir, that stuff.
Realistic cat facial capture.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Well, that was definitely a news. Now, we didn't expect Gareth to be on this show, so he hasn't prepared a challenge. So Simon has, as ever, stepped in.
Hold on to your circuits. It's challenge time.
Go for it.
It's my thing. Okay, so we're going to play a game called Geek Battle, and I was struggling to come up with a game, but it turned out Dan left the game Geek Battle at my house. So I've just basically taken that, and that is a game in which I'll give you a category, and you have to name as many things.
Can you call it like Nerd
War?
Nerd Fight
instead
of Geek
Nerd
Battle?
Wars right
Nerd
now.
Scrap.
I'm going to split you into teams of 2, which I will do now. So on the first team there is Gareth and...
Oh, look at this. He's got a random selection.
Mike.
Cool.
And then on the other team...
Well, it's going to be me and Ash, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, this could be someone else.
You ruined the suspense.
Ash.
Oh, wow.
No way.
That's amazing.
I realised that was dumb to read out those names.
Just call me Sherlock.
So, right, you guys are now on your teams, and I'm going to give you a category, and then between you guys, you'll sort of decide who thinks knows the most about that category.
Are we doing it that way now?
Kind of. But you're not going to say how many that you know. And then, alternating with whoever's chosen, you're going to say answers to the category, and whoever stumbles and doesn't get one loses, and the other team gets the point. Does that make sense? I've got quite a lot of cards here. I don't really know how many rounds I'm going to do. Maybe 5. But I'm just going to choose a card. It is this one. So
I like the fact you're looking me in the eye as you shuffled those cards.
Subject is... Okay, so...
Under the table.
Name movies or television series spin-offs of Star Trek, the original series.
I'm a bit of a Star Trek.
Okay, you can take
I'll
this
take
one.
this one.
And then
I can do
between
this.
you two.
The movies,
Yeah.
movies and TV shows.
Yes, it does include movies. So I've got
there's a lot.
here.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going by what is written on here because I know fuck all about Star Trek. So if it's not on there, I'm not carrying it.
I will leave Ash to do it.
So who's going first?
You go first.
I'll go Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah,
Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
yeah,
Search for Spock.
yeah.
Star Trek.
Can be a TV spin-off as well, remember?
Okay, I'll go Star Trek Enterprise.
No conferring.
Yeah.
The Voyage Home.
Which one, sorry?
The Voyage Home.
Yes.
Undiscovered Country.
Yes.
Next Generation.
Yes. No repeating either.
Ooh, Star Trek the series.
Yeah.
Okay. Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Star Trek Voyager.
Yes.
The Star Trek Into Darkness, the most recent one.
Yes.
So Star Trek.
Well, we can accept
Yeah,
that.
the new movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's got just Star Trek written there.
The animated series.
Yeah.
Oh!
Now
Game
I'm
changer.
fucked.
You are running low on them here.
Can I give him a supportive message?
No, can't help.
Wait. How long have I got?
There's a massive one I don't think you've said yet.
I'm watching you.
I should have done this.
Oh, I'm going to give you 5 seconds.
Oh, Star Trek Generations.
First Contact. Boom. Oh, yeah.
Star Trek Insurrection.
Nemesis.
I'm sad now.
Is there anything left?
There is one left.
Player.
Do you know it?
I think so, but I'm going to let him lose
Oh,
before I
shit.
try and guess.
Because if he gets it, he wins.
Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who out? What's your kid? What was it?
It's it's the one. It's either the one with God or the one with the whale. I can't remember which
the
one.
Final
Voyage Home is.
Frontier.
That's the one. Final Frontier.
That's it.
Yeah.
Balls.
I couldn't think of the name of it.
Good work.
Unbelievable scene.
That was,
Congratulations.
That's pretty intense. Hey, so there's a point to Dan and
That was
No,
not
we're
a
points
wasted
to Mike and
childhood.
Gareth.
point 2.
It was not a wasted
yeah.
childhood. It's all good.
Fantastic.
Team Bithell.
I wasn't even a participant and I'm sweaty.
Okay, next round is name major releases of the Microsoft Windows operating system.
Mr. Company Man Dan, why don't you take that?
Oh, okay.
How do you feel about this one?
I'm going to let you take this one.
Okay, I'm going to lose it.
I've got a funny feeling that I might not be any good at this game.
Ready?
Yeah,
Windows 3.
yeah,
Wait, Windows 95.
yeah.
Windows Millennium Edition, 2000 Millennium
Yeah.
Edition.
Let's go with Windows Vista.
Yeah,
XP,
yeah,
7.
yeah,
8.
yeah,
Oh, what have we done? CE.
yeah.
Oh, you can't.
Dropping C-bombs because of operating systems.
It's come to this.
There's one glaring one that
hang
you
on.
missed.
Windows, the original Windows. 1.
Okay,
Point
yeah, there you go.
0.
Yeah,
0.0.
98.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Oh, damn. 2.
yeah.
Windows Pocket PC. Is that on your list? Oh, no.
no.
Oh, I've lost them.
It was Windows NT was the last one.
NT, that's
Oh,
it. I was gonna say.
I really couldn't have done any better. So
Fair enough.
Point each.
Point each.
Right. Okay.
Play for.
Well, there's an
Actually,
internal
okay, let's make this decider and we're all in.
Ooh.
I've got to find one that's got loads of answers.
because that'll end quickly. You're like, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Name the current Academy Award categories, the Oscars.
Oh, that's good.
Ooh, that is a toughie.
So are we doing all
All round.
everyone?
Yeah, do it
And
all.
whoever
Do it all
loses,
in.
loses, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Who
All
do you
right.
want to go first?
Start on left.
Best Picture.
Yeah.
Best director.
Yeah.
Best actor.
Yeah.
Costume design.
Oh, you go for it. You should have saved that one, but yeah.
Actress.
Yeah.
Supporting actor.
Yeah.
Visual effects.
Yeah.
best animated feature?
Yes.
Editing.
They're just all. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Short?
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think.
I've actually forgotten what other people have said as
I
well.
was going to say, have we had both of the supporting ones?
Yes. No, we haven't.
Oh, best screenplay.
Oh, you have to clarify.
Oh, best. Sorry, so best adapted
There
screenplay.
you go. There you go. It's annoying because it's in alphabetical order, but they all start with best. So we're trying
You
to
can look at
find
the
them.
next word, though.
I'm like,
Best original screenplay.
yes. I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
Best use
2.
of a beard in a film.
1. Okay, you're out.
Fuck that shit. I didn't like the game anyway.
Best foreign film. We didn't say.
Yes.
Oh, did you say that one?
Oh, is it what? How are we doing this? Are we lost? or
We're
are
finished.
We finished.
Yeah.
Right?
So.
Oh no, sure. If we were playing out of,
No, we're
out of
playing-
sequence.
Should we
So
do a
it's-
full knockout?
Yeah.
Oh,
shit.
right.
Okay, then.
Best supporting actress.
Done that. Wait.
No, he didn't.
we
he didn't
haven't.
do that.
Sorry, my bad.
You didn't do supporting actress.
Foreign film. You want to try?
Yeah.
Have we done that?
No.
Best foreign film. There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, I just lost it.
You've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We've got enough then.
The Honourable Oscar. Shit, what is it called? Lifetime Achievement Award.
It's not there.
It exists.
Well, it's not here.
That's not my fault.
They don't do it for the back.
Out.
Hair and makeup.
Ooh.
Yes, I'll give you it because it's best makeup.
Have we had cinematography?
No. So there you go.
Cinematography.
Best cinematography. That was one.
Documentary.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, right. Is there a best animated short as well?
there is.
Sound design. Is that a thing? No, it's not. Is it?
It's so close. The word sound is there, but not designed, unfortunately.
In which case, yeah.
You're out. So.
And Dan is the winner.
Dan wins.
Hey, well
wins.
played, gents. That was very, very good. I like that game.
It's quite a good game, that.
Well, I know someone thought of it and we just stole it for the podcast. So well done, the makers of Geek
Battle.
Nerd War. Shut up.
Nerd War. Oh.
Let's have a chat.
The internet's home to prejudice, illiteracy, and hate. You can be called all sorts of things for the feelings that you state. But if you're kind, calm of mind, and able to articulate, then take our hand and take a stand and join the great debates. Then take our hand and take a stand and join the great debate.
Right, so this week's great debate is inspired by the recent treatment of the likes of Lauren Wainwright, Anita Sarkeesian, Adam Orth, and Palmer Luckey, not to mention the state of most YouTube/game site comment boards. Should we be worried about the rise of disproportionately toxic, prejudiced, and unempathetic players, or are they just a vocal minority best left ignored? In addition, should anything be done to educate those responsible to help eradicate it?
Facebook.
First up, Silum says, I think they should be acknowledged as a minority and we should find a way together for other voices, I'm guessing positive voices, to be amplified. I thought that this quite literally, and I just wondered if there was a more subtle way. Obviously, you can kind of mute people or block people or whatever, that there perhaps should be something that I thought, a volume system, which is quite apt because we've got Mike here. Either the more people who choose to turn you down because of your opinions, the less people will hear you, as it were.
Upvoting and downvoting, like Reddit.
Kind of, yeah. So lower volumes.
There's no abusive language at all on there. I remember, it's a really nice,
It's a
friendly
flawless system.
Yeah.
But lower volumes then mean that you have less say in turning others down too. So if you're a troll and if people are turned down, you can't then kind of respond in kind because you just don't have that privilege anymore.
Obviously, it could be used the opposite way to bully people.
As I say, all systems are wide open to abuse.
Yes.
Eurogamer's comment system's pretty good for that.
That it blanks out.
Eurogamer has quite a good kind of the bad stuff kind of falls off. Yeah.
The other good thing with Eurogamer is I think as a user you can opt to see, you can determine how many downvotes a comment gets before you personally don't see it.
That's good.
So if you actually want to see all these ridiculous comments, you can say, oh, if they've got 75 downvotes, then I won't see it. But anything beyond that, you can choose.
Yeah.
I like giving people the flexibility
That's
to...
tolerance of idiocy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have 75 tolerance to your...
Can that be the name of the slider, like in the settings? Tolerance of idiocy.
Because I don't know about you, but for me, when it says this comment received too many negative votes,
I always click it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want to know what it says.
Well, especially as most of my time is spent ego surfing. I want to know what people say.
All right, what did this fucker say?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the big.
What did he say? But also, it's important to know that people disagree with him. It's actually, as a developer, it's really good that Eurogamer kind of has those layers of visibility, because it does mean I can read feedback about my stuff and gain a sense of like how prevalent that opinion is. So if something's got 1 million upvotes, it's really useful feedback. Yeah.
And I also, and by the same token, I think like YouTube, for example, then doesn't allow you to view comments at all. So I think some of it should still be down to the individual viewer reader's preferences to determine whether they want to read it.
I don't think you can
not.
fix. I think the bottom line is you can't fix, the human condition with any, as much as the Web 3.0 evangelists would like us to believe it. I don't think it's a solvable problem in that respect. I think dickheads will be dickheads, won't they?
True. Tweet. On Twitter, Ricky Mitchell says, when a dev cancels a game, e.g. Philfish with Phase 2, due to abuse, it's definitely a problem that needs tackling. Mike, have you had any kind of personal experience of this kind of abuse?
No, to be honest, I'm reasonably, I get idiots. I block a few people a day. It's weird that's like, yeah, that's fine. If a few people a day call me names, it's fine. I'm relatively okay. I think it's because Reddit and NeoGAF and the internet in general decided I was a nice guy. Like they say, oh, he's just a friendly chap. I don't know why. It seems arbitrary.
Little do they know.
Well, exactly. Like I'm as much of a dick as any other indie
Kitten
developer.
killer Mike Bithell.
Exactly. I don't know, but I do seem to. I get a lot less than a lot of my friends do. It's a weird scenario. Fortunately for me, I'm polite enough to be white and male, which kind of eases a lot of the horribleness that someone. Yeah, if you're
That's
a female,
two things in your advantage.
Well,
yeah,
but it really is online. There's there is definitely these biases do creep in, and I've got female friends who just get the most absolutely ridiculous stuff, and it's seen as something that they should put up with and get thick-skinned and stuff, usually by people who've never been the brunt of that kind of horrible treatment. So no, fortunately I've been really unpopular on Twitter for like an hour tops at one point because some idiot decided to ruin my day, but other than that I've been pretty lucky. Cool. So far, until this podcast goes out, and they decide I'm smug.
Open the floodgates. Yeah. No, I mean, and I'm kind of aware that when I ask this question, that elements of it are quite reductive, but we have to kind of fit this up, debate into a 15-minute time slot, because as you mentioned, it's no coincidence that I'm referencing people like Anita Sarkeesian because she was done, and also was it the Creative Depression Quest who we mentioned earlier, Zoe,
who was also part of the Game Jam thing. She's having a really good year.
Yes, who was already having a hard time with JonTron at the Game Jam before even the rest of it kicked off as well. So, but yes, well, we are tackling the issue at large. I would like to get into the deeper issues of the fact that misogyny and racism and all that side of it are obviously conditions that we face day to day, not just online. It's, as you say, it's part of the human condition that's just expanded onto the online space. But just as I'm aware of it, just because we're not covering it. Tweet. On Twitter, Martin Cross says, IGN ban-hammered negative commenters on boards. They posted an editorial explaining new standards. More sites should do that. I read the actual post that explained this new policy, and it's incredibly reasonable. It's very, well put. And then obviously...
What was the feedback they got?
All the comments below that, was kind of just really proving them correct for doing so. One even claimed that it contravened the First Amendment.
That's totally what the First Amendment means.
Yes.
You may say anything you want and no one can question you for it. It's pretty much the core of the First Amendment.
Freedom to be an abusive dick, I think, is the...
My freedom of speech trumps your freedom of speech.
Doesn't that need a bunch of people? Like, you have to hire an entire team to moderate.
That's what they said. They said they became aware of that, and they've actually hired a lot more moderators, and they said it's not something that we're going to be able to just fix in one go, but they've actually made an ongoing effort to really...
I respect that.
Wouldn't it be a better system if it was self-regulated by the audience? Kind of like we were saying about Eurogamer, where you just kind of need a better system in place where you let the community itself dictate what's bullshit.
But that's the complete other type of moderating. They've clearly chosen the moderation route, which is having personal, not personal opinion, but people who are guided by the rules to dictate what is and isn't seen. But when it's down to the people as a mass, then that is down to something which is outside of the rules, but still kind of what is socially accepted, isn't it?
But then you kind of open yourself up. That's the problem. Because if it's a company that's moderating it, then it's kind of one entity's view of this is bad and this is okay.
Exactly, and that's where the problems lie, because people will question what those rules are.
Yeah, you could argue that an agenda is creeping in that point. Yeah. But by the same token, if the people are moderating it, then you're down to the kind of subjective nature of the individual.
But then it's the collective.
But the collective is equally biased. That's the interesting thing. We all know this with various game sites. There are some sites that have absolutely toxic kind of communities in the comments, and there are some sites that have really lovely communities. I worry about giving the top, and again, it's all subjective, right? Because I'm deciding that community is nasty and that one's good, but I don't want those people deciding what's okay. Like on certain websites, you get the impression that the general vibe is quite nasty and quite cruel. And I respect IGN for making what is essentially an investment in cash.
I mean, IGN's a monster. Let's not forget the amount of posts that they have on their site per day. Must take an insane amount of work to sift through and try and work out who the bad eggs are.
You only need to look at the forum that we frequent to see that if you let the people decide, then all havoc would.
But that's why I like that forum.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh. They're just like horrible people, but it makes me laugh.
I like to think
the internet summarized it.
But that place is kind of set up where you know what you're getting into. You know that you can expect to be abused, but generally it's that you go in with that wide open knowledge, and
you know what's going to happen if you say something.
And those communities should exist and will continue to exist. But I think the problem with a lot of these game sites is the really massive ones is they're so ubiquitous, and there are about 6 or 7 websites now that are most of the game's press in terms of just the number of eyeballs. And at that point, I think you become an ambassador. You become.
They serve so many people as well that you can't just say, well, it's okay for this demographic, because of course there's going to be a lot of young people on there as well who won't be entirely au fait with how to deal with.
They almost become public places, and I know they're not, but they feel like a public space. So have your little club where you're mean to each other. That's fine, but I think
that's pretty much what I call it.
The little club where you're mean to each other.
On a slightly more cynical tip as well, IGN obviously has advertisers to please, CPMs to get things like that, and if they develop this reputation as being a hostile environment for people to visit, and people are turning away to go and visit other sites, then they start losing that money as well, and also the advertisers pay attention.
It does affect as well dev relationships of kind of if you know that a certain website is going to have lots of negativity about whatever you're going to them to kind of to get coverage or to give a preview copy or whatever. There are websites that people second guess sending stuff to, and that's not good for anyone.
Indeed.
That's why we've always had such amazing access.
Yes.
On the point about educating these trolls, a couple of comments, both of which basically say it's a waste of time. Nightfall666 says, most of the time it's the attention they're seeking. Education only works if people are willing to listen. And Stuart Buchanan says, educating trolls is akin to polishing turds.
You can always roll them in glitter, though.
It's true.
That's a horrible image. That's a really horrible image.
So, I mean, the reason I ask this is, do we genuinely think that most of the people, as an average session on Call of Duty would suggest, are actually just very young? Or are we just dealing with this nation of, like, secret sociopaths?
Well, this is the thing. There's 2 types of trolls, aren't there? There are screaming harpies who haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing, but they just like to make as much noise as possible, a little bit like me right now. And then there are educated people who, every day, you and I, who go on there because we actually get our kicks from annoying people. I'm not saying that's what you and I do.
A little girl's like you and I. It's like, don't bring us into this
but I mean,
game.
We were talking to your friend. He actually admits openly to enjoy. He goes online and he deliberately winds people up because he likes it. It's like, you are a secret sociopath. He's got lots of logins on different forums,
but he doesn't. But he wouldn't go to say, for example, if you had something, Mike, where to say someone interviewed you on IGN about your game, he wouldn't then go on and bash you. He would bash other commenters,
which I think is the interesting. I think that blurring of the line is where actually a lot of this stuff comes from. Is I think that there's a sport to being on the internet and commenting, and I think everyone in a comment section kind of knows that it's all anonymous. I'm not really here. Those people can't hurt me. There's it's all good. Where it becomes a challenge is, especially I think with indie devs, because we're more open and kind of more out there and more visible, and we don't have PR people telling us, no, Mike, don't say that. So that we're kind of more out there. That I think a lot of the time they don't perceive these interactions, they can be cheeky with me because they think they remember the relationship they have with other commenters. And it's like, no, dude, I'm a real person. This is where I work. It's very interesting. I've met people who've trolled me on Twitter in real life. I've been out at events and people come up to me and you blocked me on Twitter. I'm like, well, I imagine you said something quite rude then. They're like, yeah, no, I was just making a joke about the way you looked in that photo. It's like, well,
what do you expect?
You were just being rude to me. And it's like, oh, it's just the internet. No, think about this. Would you have walked up? And it's interesting to me whenever I meet these people, and I've met a couple of trolls now in real life, just because people tend to come up to you after events. And actually, most of the time, they just don't realise that they've been rude. It doesn't occur to them that real life manners and normally human interaction and online interaction are in any way connected.
That's why I use the word unempathetic specifically, because that's it. And the fact that you had to explain to someone's face.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. has a very valid point about empathetic behaviour and the rise of internet use, and particularly, on phones and what have you, is that in real life interactions, if you're rude to somebody in real life, face to face, and you see their hurt, if you say damn, you're not looking good, say you're an ugly bastard. Look, you've broken into tears. But you can see that. But online, you don't get that feedback. They might obviously come back and say something to you, but you don't see how much you've hurt somebody.
No.
And it's important to have that empathy, and it's why maybe there is an issue with the next generation coming through, that they're not going to be quite as empathetic.
No, I literally don't have any trolls anymore. I started at Microsoft having fuckload of people who thought
I can imagine you were a lightning rod just because you were so visible on
initially, and also because they thought I'd just been drafted in, that I was reading someone else's scripts, that I didn't actually know what I was talking about, all of those elements. And over the years, as that became more apparent that I did, that really died off. That said, I'm not even going to name him, but there is one guy who seems to have this one-man crusade against me.
Is that the man that we all know and love?
Yeah, it's the one man we all know and love. And he will take any effort to include me in an insult, even if it's aimed at someone else.
Nice.
He'll then just include my name.
You're
and say,
as bad as.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice.
It's that.
I've got a couple of those. They're great.
Now, I've got kind of 3 points that I think are variations on the theme, so I was going to read them all out together. They're quite long, so bear with me.
Facebook.
Dan Long says, unpleasant folk are usually ostracised in the real world, and perhaps the badlands of the online world would benefit from stronger social rules and mores that we can all get behind. It needs to be a mixture of carrot and stick to keep the burgeoning online society in check. It's all too easy for people to hit post before they've had time to properly engage their brains, empathise and think how will this impact on the recipient's life, rather than YOLO, just be trolling, etc. And then
that's amazing. You're so down with the kids.
That was my voice.
Facebook.
George Thompson says, I dream of a world. Sorry. I dream of a world. Just the way he said it. George Thompson says, I dream of a world with a single online identity. Your avatar would represent your online presence where your reputation precedes you. The toxicity of the community is as a result of the vocal minority being allowed to portray their behaviour as normal. Community teams from across the industry need to manage their forums like, say, a barman manages their customers. Certain behaviour is unacceptable and that fact needs to be communicated.
Facebook.
And finally, Damien Briggs says, personally, I think the easiest way to stop this is for online platforms to insist upon real names and ages to be entered onto accounts, saying, I know it wouldn't work all the time. But at least the whole idea of looking at an online profile and finding your harasser to be a 15-year-old tends to diffuse the situation. The way the clan I played with used to deal with it was humour. Wait for the barrage to start and then just laugh and say, here we go then, come on, and press us with your language or something to that effect. Most people tended to shut up after that.
I wish that were the case. That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
So, to kind of go slightly Orwellian, could an online passport reduce this sort of behaviour, a kind of online ID card, or would that be further infringing on people's general rights of privacy and anonymity? Or could this concept at least be isolated to online gaming?
The sooner you augment people with the internet, it'll all stop overnight when you become online, when you have that chip. It's not going to happen, but not in our lifetime anyway. But I wouldn't be sort of against some sort of online passport.
Well, we all sort of did it by default when we all joined Facebook, didn't we? We all got very worried about ID cards and then immediately jumped on Facebook because but I think I wish that would work. I actually don't think that naming people actually does work in these spaces. I've seen so I will use the name because I think I've tweeted about it before. Gamesindustry.biz as a site is an amazing site with some very great people writing for it and lots of cool stuff. But their comment section is absolutely disgusting. And I know they did an article article about Anita Sarkeesian the other day, and that was enormous in terms of the comments. People posting horrible, misogynistic, nasty stuff alongside their real names at the companies they work at. And these are guys from, these are a lot of them are students, but a lot of them are people, producer at Codemasters and stuff like this. And you're like,
unbelievable.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I guess usually misogynist, racist, whatever people tend to be not very bright. But so that to me is an example of a games website where people do use their real names and just post bile, being honest about who they are. So actually, I kind of don't think this would work. And also you see on, places with Facebook commenting, plenty of nasty stuff written from people's Facebook accounts with their photo and their real names and stuff. I think people are just idiots. These kind of people are idiots.
Of course, you had recently on Twitter where there were a couple of cases where people were being taken to court over comments they'd made, and nothing's really changed since then.
No.
It's, I suppose, people just aren't scared of this.
Well, it's a lot of money and it's an enormous target, right? If you're a celebrity and you're getting hundreds of messages a day, there's only so many lawyers you can hire.
There is no straight answer to this, is there?
No, although to that point, I would say to any publishers or developers listening, when someone does apply for a role at your company, rather than just checking LinkedIn, why not go to Games Industry?
Games Industry.biz is an amazing recruitment tool to find those people.
Yeah, just check the comments section and see if that person you're hiring is in fact a complete dickwad.
Maybe you could make a racist Select 11 or something. You could, really go to town on just hiring all the very worst people and putting them in a room. And
somewhere. In midfield, it's anti-Semitism.
The dirty dozen of games development.
Just see what they come up with.
It's brilliant.
Just pump loads of money into the projects and just see what they come up with.
Just refined bile. Awesome.
Fantastic. Tweet. Stricken Big Ed is kind of going a bit zero tolerance. He says, remove their privileges, in my opinion. I'm really interested to see how Microsoft will implement the player reputation system on Xbox One. Oh, something else that's missing from Xbox One. How about...
Hello.
No, I'm still absolutely... I just can't believe that they've stripped out so many features of Xbox Live from Xbox One. At the very least, you should expect parity from system to system. PSN managed it pretty effortlessly. Why not Xbox Live? That's beside the point. But... my idea was, how about a similar system to driver rehab for people who lose their license? Going back to the education thing, where it's kind of you've got to prove that you kind of understand the fundamentals of online etiquette and why what you did was wrong before they kind of let you back on. I don't think that idea of blocking someone, because that only causes that initial negative sentiment to kind of fester and grow, I think, and that resentment towards the people that block them, rather than kind of actively saying, if you're ready to accept that what you did was wrong and understand why, then we'll welcome you back with open arms.
Fortunately, Microsoft
even if you've just posted a picture of your dick on Uno or something.
Yeah, fortunately, Microsoft is really good at those sort of things as well, those tick box learn as you go, the employee things that we had to go through. So maybe they could just open up some of them to the general public.
Oh yeah, oh god, what was it called? Is it Darnell Williams or something like that?
Yeah, video chapters where you had to skip through, and I just skipped everything. Press C for every option,
and then pass a test at the end before you were allowed to raise purchase orders and stuff. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Tweet. Rich Cowie says the tribunal system on League of Legends seems to have a success rate on changing player attitude and behaviour. It throws you into games with other toxic players, and let's be honest, you don't want to be stuck there. So attitudes change.
Facebook.
Similarly, Robert Evans says, it reminds me of Road Rage. We have all seen the 8-stone ringing wet bloke tell a huge guy to fuck off just because he sits behind a pane of glass. If we want to change this type of behaviour, we need to introduce a clear view of the implications. I applaud Titanfall's approach to cheats and antisocial behaviour. Perhaps this is the watershed moment to address this stain on gaming. Both systems are a great idea. I didn't know about the League of Legends one, but the recent post by Respawn about the Titanfall system was brilliant. If you're using aimbots or you're generally receiving negative reviews, you basically just get chucked into games with other...
The tone of it was really good as well. Yeah. I remember, you're going to have to make sure that cheat you paid for is better than the one everyone else paid
just
for.
Loads of aimbots.
Yeah,
so
I
just
love that.
Descending into the pits of hell.
Yes.
But this does work in real life, doesn't it? In terms of, if you assume that society is not going to be full of perfect people, good people. One way to curb the behaviour of the outliers is to have the threat of some kind of punishment that will, an extrinsic problem, basically, some kind of, that's why the prison system exists, is basically, wow, this is like the most right-wing rant I've ever gone on. Throw them all in jail.
Buckle it. Everyone.
I just realised I'm basically the sun right now. But basically having those kind of extrinsic things, because these guys, I don't think you're going to talk them around and say, what you're doing is bad, be a nice person. But actually saying what you're doing is bad, here's what will happen if you continue to be bad and this will negatively impact your experience, I think that makes sense.
Criminals are aware that jail exists, but they still commit crimes. So
Yes.
at least you give them a fair crack of the whip and say, look, there are consequences to your actions and you will be punished accordingly.
But criminals are extreme. I bet there's a lot of people who, again, so right-wing, a lot of people who would do things that they thought they could get away with if they thought that there was no punishment for it. I imagine that the existence of prisons prevents a certain part of the population from committing crime because they know there's that thing over there that's, the outliers will always be there.
A percentage of the spectrum.
Yeah, it takes out the middle ground of slightly horrible.
I do like this idea of an echo chamber of just
it's awesome
trolls just shouting abuse at
It'd be
each
a
other.
fun place to visit, wouldn't it? For like just 10 minutes, just to like the Orwellian the minutes hate or something.
There's
It's like that film, The Purge, isn't it?
The beginning of Blade Runner. It's the descent into hell.
This reminds me of a really, really great book called Ready Player One.
Yes.
And basically, one of the things that he says in there, some comment on internet trolls and things like that, is because it's kind of virtual reality and your whole body is in there and it's like recreations of actual rooms and, someone's created their lounge or something. So forums are now physical spaces. Negative commenters and trolls pretty much dropped off the map because even though it's just an online persona and no one knows who you really are, because you're actually in the room with that person's avatar, you're less of a dick. It just kind of worked out that way.
It didn't really work for PlayStation Home.
Well, yeah.
That's the best game of chess I've ever played while watching a gang of people chase another guy around a field.
Microsoft Chess. That's 4 for 4.
No, that's PlayStation.
No, I was just bringing in Microsoft Chess for another week.
Microsoft Chess.
Yeah.
Oh,
We mentioned the word chess.
I thought you said Microsoft, yes.
It was it was just a nice segue.
You're going to shoehorn that bad boy in every episode now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
No, the one thing we used to do, we used to honey trap people in PlayStation Home, which is where you have two avatars, one who's like a really attractive female, and then you just kind of stand there and just you get this swarm of men, and then you just flick over to an ugly bloke, and they all just go, and you just get loads of shit for doing it.
They should have some kind of special room they put people like you into to keep.
Why?
Why?
Oh no, because women were getting heavily abused on it, so it was just an interesting experiment to see what the effect would be.
Oh right, I was thinking a lot darker. I was thinking this like some sort of sexy fantasy.
Oh no, I wasn't baiting them, letting them have their way with it. And they go, "I was a man all along." No, it was just to see the kind of treatment that you get if you were a woman, and it was just horrifying.
And something to think about for later that night.
Indeed. Tweet. And finally, Cyber17 says, well, quite defeatedly, it's impossible to eradicate online abuse. We all know that, and there has to be a degree of acceptance at what world you are playing in. I can't think of a game ranked under PEGI 16 where it's a problem, so there is an air of suck it up. But when it seeps over into real life with death threats or actual assaults due to game falling out, this should be dealt with aggressively. Virtual reality is virtual, and there should never be any real danger to anyone using it.
Good words.
Thanks, Cyber17.
Could we have like a Team America style force that basically goes around the world and goes, you threaten someone's life, and they fly to like country to country and go, never threaten that dev, we're putting you in cyber prison.
Which Jay and Silent Bob movie is it where they fly around the country?
That is so funny. I was literally about to say, that's my dream.
Yeah.
I've always dreamt of that moment of getting the addresses of all the people,
punching
flying,
every
just over the
kid
door,
in
saying, are you so-and-so? Just clocking them in the face. And there you go.
Explosive Alan's new side branch.
Yeah.
You set that up.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Punchable Alan.
And so, good listener, another evening's podcasting draws to a close. If you wish to correspond with our group of gaming gents, you may do so via Twitter at explosive_Alan, Facebook at facebook.com/explosivealanproductions, or even by traditional electronic mail at stuff@explosivealan.com. You should also follow our fine guest, Mr. Bithell, on Twitter at Mike Bithell. Say goodbye in a fashion becoming of a true gent.
Goodbye.
Toodle pip.
I'm terribly sorry. Goodbye.
Tally ho.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, what do you know? It turned out that one of my best friends on Butterfied was the shape-shifting alien. His name is Draxlaw, he's a big Titanfall fan, and he's really sorry about killing the rest of the scientists, but he needed to keep up his kill-death ratio. It was funnier at the time, I suppose. So yes, Butterfly.com. It saved my life, and one day it might save yours. You said it, Draxlor.
Basically sing it to I Dreamed a Dream, because the new one's in the French Revolution, so...
Every episode
Well,
we
you
have
know
it.
that that's not the right revolution, right?
No.
Just to be a lame
No, I know,
nerd.
I know.
You know. Sorry. I've been correcting the internet for that gag for exclusively for the last 2 weeks.
I couldn't think of another musical set in the French in the relevant
real
French
French
Revolution.
Can you
I
please tweet
understand.
that once the episode's out as well?
I've been tweeting that non-stop.
Please do.